All right, we are live according to StreamYard. Welcome to another episode of Command Control Power. We're back and recording in the middle of the month of June, and I don't know how you guys feeling so far this season.
Hot.
It's end of spring. Yeah, you guys are in a heat wave there, huh?
Yeah, it is hot. What do you think, Jerry? Are you hot up in your neck of the woods and farmland?
Yeah, it gets a little warm, and then everybody kind of loses their mind, which is weird.
Yeah. We had some heat here recently, and it's actually cooled off quite a bit today. I mean, it's like a high of 70 something, so it's a little bit cooler than it's been here. So it's funny. We sometimes get opposite weather and sometimes get very similar weather. But before we bore everybody talking about the weather, I know we have some juicy stuff coming up in the patron-only recording. That will be the subsequent recording today. So just to tease that, stay in there with us. And if you're not signed up, go to commandcontrolpower.com and click on support to join us on Patreon, and you'll get all the extra special content. Sam has a follow-up to share in that patron-only episode.
Big news.
Jerry and I are both like guessing here, trying to figure out what it is. But yeah,
no guessing. You can't guess.
Just mentally guessing.
I'm gonna have to use my poker face if you guess.
And I'm going to talk about working with a client that has Control 4. So if you've done any residential work, mostly you see this type of installation where they were just getting awful network connectivity, and it was trying to break into Control 4 and trying to deal with the Control 4 dealer. And, it gets pretty specific. So stay tuned for that for you Patreon subscribers.
I want to hear about that one because I definitely see those clients, and it's the kind of thing we've found a good AV integrator who's actually pretty consistently available and reliable and willing to, meet with our clients and sometimes propose solutions. Whereas other AV integrators, in my experience, they're not interested unless it's a 6-figure job, brand new install, all new hardware, that kind of thing. So we feel very lucky to have found somebody who is willing to work to try to give people solutions, even if they don't want to rip out everything and start over. But still, it's nice to know this stuff yourself. And I do have clients that have that, and just great to be able to speak intelligently about it. So I look forward to that one too, Jerry. But that'll be the patron only episode, right?
That's right. Okay. By the way, I don't know if you see, I'm drinking. The elderly, it's important to stay hydrated. Now that my cup won't show.
You gotta hold it in front of you, Jerry.
Hold it in front of you, like
the elderly don't know how to do the virtual background, apparently.
Yeah. Right. So the old folks got to drink up. So I'm trying to do my part. By the way, I'm also wearing one of my favorite T-shirts. My wife got this for me, and it says "I love my Wi-Fi." But it originally said "I love my wife," and then the E was scratched away, and it says Wi-Fi.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I like it.
Really good. Yeah, nice. You don't wear that on Mother's Day, right? Yeah. At least you get a pass, right? Because she bought it for you. So
it hits a little close to home, though. That's the thing.
Right. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So I wanted to tell you guys about Backblaze. I use this vendor. I hate to throw them under the bus today, but the way this all started, just a little bit. The way this all started was I got a bill. I have my Backblaze groups. That's how I administrate them. And Backblaze has a portal that you could log into. You could log into your account and then open up the groups. And it's okay. It's not the greatest GUI interface, but I deal with it, and they recently raised their rates. They were $70 a year. Now they're $100 a year, but we get a 1-year retention. So that actually comes into this discussion. So I have a client, one of my groups, 8 people, and I get a bill for $1,600. And I just absolutely, I absolutely flip out. Yeah. And I look, and I'm on a 2-year renewal, which I did not put that client on a 2-year renewal. I put everybody on a 1-year plan because I'm month to month with most of my clients. They pay through my Square account, and at any time anybody wants to part company, I can make them, I can remove all the stuff that we're doing for them. And if I reach out to Backblaze, I get some money back prorated. So initially, through the chat, and they're very good and they're very responsive in the chat. You can usually reach out to them and say, I've just terminated this account, because if you don't ask, they keep charging you, or they won't credit you back for the, let's say, the seat that you've relinquished when you move the client out of your group.
Yeah.
So unless you ask them for the credit, it just sits there and you are losing money.
Well, to their, Jerry, not to interrupt your flow, but to their credit, let's just say, I think part of that is to retain the backup. Like in theory, you may want to keep that backup indefinitely. Does that, so like, in other words, if you weren't paying for the license, then you wouldn't be able to retain the backup, the previously backed up data. Does that come into play here?
Not here, because I'm already moved the person out of the portal, so they get the message that if you want to continue your Backblaze account, you need to pay up within some certain specified amount of time, 7 days, 14 days.
Okay.
So the client gets that email, and then they take over the Backblaze account or just let it lapse, and then it gets deleted. But I'm just talking about a blank open seat that gets credited back to me when I move them out.
Right.
So if you don't ask,
selling you a license that you're not using, basically.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, so I reached out on chat, and they said, well, we've already charged you for the 2 years because the license renewed, and we're going to need to talk to our sales team. So that started a chain of events where I made an appointment, a Zoom call with somebody from their sales staff, who actually rectified the issue right away. But they, as a user of Backblaze groups, they wanted to talk to me a little bit further and see how I use Backblaze. And, it was sort of more informative for them. But so anyway, they did indeed take care of it. And this person, the customer service rep, went through all my Backblaze groups and made sure that none of them were set for a 2-year renewal. And I told her that, I'm not saying that this is disreputable, but I know that I've never put my clients on a 2-year plan. And initially, when you sign them up, it kind of like defaults over to a 2-year plan. And you have to specifically drag it down and say, no, 1 year. And it's correct because you get charged immediately for those 8 clients in my case. Right. So if I had made the mistake, I would know right away. So none of these people are on a 2-year renewal. Mm-hmm. But she said, I've gone through each one to make sure. But so that's my first piece of advice, is that you need to go into your Backblaze groups and make sure none of you listening have this toggled on mistakenly, unless, and they said, what did they say? I don't remember exactly what they said specifically about that. Oh, that has to do with my next point. And my next point is that, Backblaze sometime last year made everybody on a 1-year retention. So you through your Backblaze portal, when you look at your groups, it asks for, there's an entry where it says, Joe, I don't have the specific text that I texted you, but it says 1-year upgrade or something like that. What is the?
Oh, the extended version history, 1 year, it's like opt in. So you basically,
Well, it says upgrade, doesn't it? It's a blue button.
Yeah, right.
Or does it say
in the back? Yeah, I think you might be right that in the Backblaze interface, it says something like upgrade to 1-year version history, and you click that, and then it's like charging you. You just check a box, and it's like $0. And you
exactly, So if you don't go through all your Backblaze groups and upgrade for free to this free thing that they're supposedly giving you, you're still on a 30-day. Regardless of whether you were new or anything else. There's no default mechanism, because it's like Backblaze said, we changed our policy. Everybody gets 1 year, but nobody automatically was opted into the 1 year.
Right. So,
I don't want to say the word or the phrase deceptive business practices, but nothing here is happening in my favor.
Right. I was going to say the same. Exactly. Yeah. It's funny how that works out, right? How it's like, they're happy. Like every company's happy to opt you into displaying more ads or sending you more spam or opting you into all the things that you don't want to be opted into. But as soon as it's like opting into, costing them more money to save more data for a longer period of time, we're not going to opt you into that. We want you to actually, make that choice yourself, which I'm being cynical, but I could see actually some benefit to like being given the choice. Like it's to cover them still. So it's still more in their favor. Right.
Well,
But
they did mention that, they kind of like throw up the like, well, for, and Sam knows some of these fancy acronyms. Oh, because of this policy or that policy,
the CYA policy, really.
Yeah. We don't automatically opt you into the free thing that we're giving away. That but the thing is like they make it look like if you press that button, you're going to get charged, and you're like, because I looked at this before. Like I'm not the smartest guy on the block, but I looked at this. I said, oh yeah, I remember Backblaze. Gave everybody a 1-year retention policy, but now it's asking me to upgrade or opt in or something for it looks like it's for a charge. So I never pressed the button that, like you said, says $0 due because it's included in your plan. But like, who's looking out for me? At Backblaze.
Is there any, I'm not really playing devil's advocate per se, but like, is there any reason, because it's customer data, even though it's going in the right direction?
Yeah, well, that's what they said.
Retention.
Yeah,
that's what they said.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I can imagine a scenario where somebody gets, I don't know, leaves the company, or was sharing an account with a former spouse, or so, I don't know, who knows, where it's like, I only thought my data was kept for 30 days, but they were able to get in after 6 months and pull some data out that I didn't want to be backed up. And I only ever agreed to 30 days. I never agreed to 1 year. It's like, well, upon renewal, you're welcome. We gave you a full extra year. Also, they charged us more for it right at the time. So now it's like you don't have a choice, as you once did, to pay for an extra, for 1 year retention. But yeah, I mean, because the original agreement was, 30 days, and I could see them wanting to opt you in. Then again, I could see that a lot of people would be pissed, where it's like, I've been paying the amount that includes 1 year retention, but I haven't been, now I'm missing data from 2 months ago, right? Because it wasn't retained for longer than 30 days. Wouldn't they be just as open to people complaining about that side of it? So
yeah,
but that was the plan, though, right? I mean, like, that's what you supposedly selected. So it's not, I'm just saying it's not their fault if it's 30 days, because that's the plan that they offered you.
I guess so. That would be their cover.
Right. But I missed the memo. Hey, make sure if you want your clients not to renew on a 2-year plan, to go in there, and it's very deceptive where you do it. I went through all the settings, and I thought this option wasn't even available to me. You have to go to this little tiny edit hyperlink next to the where it says credit card, and then open up the credit card, and that's where you select a 1 year or a 2-year renewal term. And I thought that's like really well buried as well. So I missed the memo on that. I missed the memo, like, you got to opt in for the 1 year, even though you're paying for it. Now, the only thing I want to say about Backblaze is they're trying really hard, right? But when we were at $70 a month for the 30 days, a year, sorry, thank you, I was very happy. I was happy to use their service. Now we're being charged, percentage wise, what is that, 40% more? 1.4% or something like that. And the customer interface is still a little janky. If you want to load in a group, like, let's say my group is the Smith Company. If I type in the word Smith, because I have multiple pages, it takes a moment or two. You actually physically have to wait there, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, like, oh my God, first world problem, but you're waiting for the interface to properly load. I don't know if you guys have seen that. So like we're charging like the big boys do now. So we got to do better at Backblaze. I mean, that's what I'm saying. When we were at 70, I'm willing to forgive some stuff here, but now that, I'm all in, I don't know. I think, yeah. Do I recall it was even less than 7 at one point? Like I kind of remember the days of $5 or $6 a month, right?
It was like $50 or $60 a year. I can't remember what the starting price was.
I think it was $5 and $50 a year. Like then it was like 6 and 60. So, it's to Jerry's point, like even from 7 to 9, it's like, it's a couple of bucks. Well, that's like that is 30% more. That's a huge increase when you're talking $1 when it was started off so low. So let alone 5 to now 9, that's a significant increase. And with, some additional features, the 1-year version history, et cetera. But I agree with you. And I think I have seen those big renewals come up as well, where I have opted in, because you do get, you save money versus paying, you pay for 10 months, not, 12 months out of the year. So it's a way to save a little bit more money. So I do opt into that in some cases. And they have been good about crediting back the money, like you said, if you ask.
They have.
And I don't know if there's a limit. Maybe I've noticed soon enough. There may be a limit to that, where they're like, well, you're 7 months into your plan, sorry, or something. I don't know. But yeah, these are very important aspects. And on the topic of the cost, the other reason I think they can justify it is that storage amounts have increased. So 10 years ago, a Mac might have 256. Well, now they still come with 256, but they can go to 8 terabytes internal, so it's like, okay, that is actually a pretty big, increase. And so I'm imagining they're accommodating that. People are taking more photos and videos, et cetera, as time goes on.
But it does become a pressure point for us as consultants too, because as they increase, however often they do, we have to always, even though, like we were talking about, it's a couple of bucks, we then have to change our pricing potentially to our customers, or we can eat it, but that can grow over time. Yeah. So it's like, you got to approach Mr. Customer again and be like, sorry, I got to raise your backup rates or your plan stack or whatever it is at the time.
Right.
That can frustrate the customer too, but it is a product of, storage costs, and it all trickles down to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead, Jerry.
I mean, that's all I got to say about it is, I know they're trying really hard, and it just seems like these two things were real tricky issues that weren't obvious to me how to fix or how to affect change. And I don't know.
One other question on that. Do you know if you can opt into the 1-year version history through the Backblaze portal for managing groups, or do you have to do that on like on the client side somehow,
No, that was it was for the group. So all the people that I selected
in the group were
$0 for the upgrade. But they claim they sent some message out about this, but there seems like there could be better communication to folks like ourselves as they sort of build out their offering for people, MSPs. They could do a whole lot better. Not much has changed.
As long as we're putting feature requests into the air about Backblaze, one more request would be, how about scheduling the maintenance window for something other than like midday on a Thursday? Because that occasionally gets me, I'm like,
you don't want to pay overtime for their people to do it after hours.
I know. It's like, okay, you're charging $9 a month per Mac now. Like you can afford to pay them, their overtime rate or whatever, because I have had cases where I'm all gung ho. I'm like getting in there. Okay, let me get everybody signed up for Backblaze. And it's like, oh, I can't log in. And then the client's like, oh, that's weird. It's down. And I'm like, well, it's a scheduled maintenance. And it sounds silly because I'm, they're like, really? Like, it's Thursday afternoon. Like, why would it be down for maintenance? So yeah, it does affect people still, I think. I don't know.
Maybe I wonder, all jokes aside, I wonder if they've looked at statistics as to how, when restores are happening or whatever. And right, Thursday afternoons seem to be slow. Let's do it.
Yeah,
then.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they responded to that at one point. I think in the Slack channel, some representative from Backblaze weighed in and they're like, oh, we found this was the optimal time for our customers to do it.
It sounds like
I have a theory on this. So either they need to do it during their workday, and if they have an oh heck moment, they need to build in enough time to backpedal with all their engineers on site and not pay overtime. So either they don't want to pay their employees overtime to do this during off-peak hours, or nobody wants to do maintenance during the day, so they get off with all the data that they use. And I don't know what they're using on the back end, like S3 or their own stuff, that they're being offered a better rate to do it in the middle of the workday because nobody wants to do it then. So I think it's a financial decision.
Sure.
I don't think it's a technical one. I think they're waving again, I think they're talking out of both sides of their mouth on that one.
Yeah.
I'm a conspiracy theorist, actually.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I know these. I mean, you're still bullish on Backblaze, though. I mean, that's you're still going forward with them. You like them. You know, there's no dolly drive. I get it, but that's still your backup of choice.
Yeah, like I said, they're trying really hard, and you know, they were very nice on the phone, and they listened intently, and they're like, "Oh, good, you know, these are suggestions we need."
Yeah,
like,
you know what?
We take your feedback seriously.
You just reminded me of one more Backblaze thing that happened like 2 weeks ago. So we had a client that had 2 iMacs in need of replacement, but I've been waiting for like maybe Apple will release an iMac with 4 terabytes of storage like she needs, you know, and no, we just keep waiting. So eventually one of them dies. One of the it's maybe 8 or 9 years old, I think, at this point. So it was time, because I think they topped out at Monterey, and that's, you know, not long for this world. So anyway, we finally recommended a Mac Mini to replace it. And her Time Machine backup was slightly delayed, and the Backblaze was up to date. So we ordered the Backblaze restore drive. No problem, you know, set up the new Mac Mini and restore from the Backblaze drive. Well, so Tim goes on site, sets it up, plugs in the restore drive, starts carbon copy cloner to clone the folder from the drive to, you know, the user's folder on the new machine, with the temporary user account in place and all that. And then, you know, goes home, follows up remotely to see the status, and he's finding, and the client is reporting that it's erroring out. So Tim said, well, okay, you know, we're using carbon copy cloner, so that's the point of the software. It can kind of recover from this. So it can, you know, it'll try if there's an error, it'll try, and then eventually maybe it'll give up, and then we can actually configure it. So he configured it to run hourly. So if the task is not in process, it'll just kick off an hourly clone, so that if it fails and craps out, it'll try again. So this goes on for like half a day, whatever. It's like making slow progress. And then like in the most recent attempts, it's making almost no progress. In the meantime, we had advised her, you know, she's of course a little concerned, like, is my data safe? You know, I ordered this drive from Backblaze and you're telling me it's giving you problems, right? So I said, in the meantime, order another recovery drive. We're going to see if this, you know, plan A is successful. And if not, you know, we've got the recovery drive on the way. So she ordered the second restore drive. And sure enough, the process crapped out. The drive failed, or is basically marginally, you know, failing in some way where it's reporting IO errors, because Backblaze reuses the drives. So eventually it's just going to wear out, you know, because like you get the drive, you know, you use it, you send it back, you get your money back. So to their credit, great. But how do they make that work? You know, they've got to reuse the drives, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was a little bit disconcerting, you know, for us to be like, oh, let me assure you, we can order a new drive. And I'm like, I don't know that this is really like 100% true. Like maybe the data that they put on the drive is bad, you know, I don't know really. So yeah. So not to bash Backblaze, because again, I'm like you guys, I use it, you know, they're still industry standard. They're pretty much the only solution that I've encountered where I haven't had a problem, because in terms of like the backup actually working, which is of course the main thing you want from a product like this. But clients are very keen to reassure me that they have Carbonite, you know, and I'm like, whenever I hear them say, I have Carbonite, I'm like, you might have Carbonite, but does Carbonite have your data? You know, that's like, does
Carbonite have you?
Yeah, it's like, right, exactly. It's like a Seinfeld episode for modern times or something. It's like, you can take the reservation, you know, you can't hold the reservation. Yeah, right. So there, you know, sure enough, the last one I encountered, it's got the green thing in the menu bar. You know, it's like green dot, like Carbonite is like green. It's like, I'm doing great over here. And it's like, I go in and it says, you know, click here, you know, you're not backed up, but like click
in 146 days.
Yeah, right. So it's like, you know, and okay, like you probably missed a message, but you know, anyway, I think Backblaze is more reliable despite everything we've been saying. You know?
I just keep thinking of Jerry going like, anyone can take reservations.
It's like, exactly. That's so good. It's so true.
Yeah. One thing on ordering the drive, I did this recently as well. Luckily all the data was there, but it takes 72 hours before you actually have it in your hand. So by the time we discover, you know, that we need to order the backup because they have no other backup, and you do it, let's say on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m., you're not going to see that drive till Friday if you're lucky. FedEx, it comes as soon as they can do it, but it's not like some engineers working on it the next day vigilantly for you. You know, you have to wait your turn and get in line. So 72 hours. I mean, that's a good rule of thumb to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. I've only had to order a drive once, and it was a few years ago. But then after that, Jerry, I mean, then you have to connect it, and depending on what drive speeds you have to restore it, so there's definitely a downtime there, and that's actually one of the key points of talking to customers about, like, how long can you be down for? Yeah. Because otherwise, we might have to have additional redundancy contingencies, or else you might be down for a week, and that's the way it goes. So. And of course, a lot of customers might be like, "Oh, we'll be okay. Like, it'll never happen to us," and then it inevitably does. But story of how it always goes.
Right.
But at least Backblaze is a good outfit overall. I was just dealing with GoDaddy, which we all know and love for a while, but that was man, GoDaddy just keeps getting worse, if that's even possible. So I'll give you a quick synopsis of what happened to me. We had a customer, when we first signed them on, like fourth quarter last year, they were using GoDaddy with 365, which we of course immediately were like, well, no, if we're going to sign you on, we're going to move you out of that. Yeah. And so we did. We planned it, and it's called defederation, basically, when you keep the 365 account, but you defederate from GoDaddy, and that kind of worked well. We reset passwords. There were some bumps in the road along the way, but it worked. We got the end users with support on site and for phone calls and a couple of days of this and that, and we were golden. So they were happy. They were saving tons of money, by the way, because they had like a lot of accounts. And we did two things. One is obviously moving them from GoDaddy. They were charging them that extra premium. But then secondary to that, they were using a high number of accounts that could easily have been just shared mailboxes instead of, actual accounts. And people were actually they were doing these insurance programs, and like 10 different people were signing into that mailbox from different computers. And I'm like, all right, we got to change that. So we turned them into shared mailboxes. So they were thrilled. Everything was going great. And then slowly here and there, we started to hear reports of emails either failing to go out and them getting bounce backs, or failing to come in. And MX records were fine. Jerry's got a theory, right?
No, you moved them to Microsoft Office 365.
They were already at 365.
Yeah, you defederated them from GoDaddy.
Right.
Okay. And just to be clear, Sam, so defederation doesn't require migration, right? It's just like the data is still in place on Microsoft's infrastructure.
Yes, exactly. You just extract them from GoDaddy on the back end, and then their accounts are still there. No migration. It's actually not bad, you know, because we just log into the portal using a new admin. We have to reset everybody's password. That's the biggest downside. Right. But other than that, it's actually kind of not terrible. Even though it's GoDaddy. So So beyond that, that's when we had the trickle effects of some of the emails working and some of them not. And we started to just kind of fix what we saw here and there. We said, oh, this could be because some of the errors were a little vague. They were like, it could be your SPF record. And we're like, nope, ours is fine. Or it could be, DKIM or whatever. So we would troubleshoot here and there. And sometimes we would get to the bottom of it. And sometimes the other person on the other end wouldn't reply. But to bring it to current times, which is a few months later. So it's been.
And what were you seeing specifically? What was happening? The email wouldn't go out?
Both outbound and inbound sporadically would occur.
And if it would go out, it would bounce back, or what would it do?
Yeah, but they were very vague errors. So it wasn't like specific. It said it was really interesting. I'll try and bring one of them up and maybe throw them in the show notes. But they would say like, when we see errors like this, it could be this. And I was that's interesting. It wasn't like very specific, but after a little while, we started to see some specific errors, and I'm not sure what the indication is where that started to change, but we would see an indication towards a Proofpoint DNS record, so MX record, which for any of the listeners that aren't aware of Proofpoint, it's basically a filter tool for inbound and outbound to catch spam and do things like that and protect the user from getting stuff they shouldn't. And Proofpoint is what they had with GoDaddy. And we disconnected it all, or so we thought.
I have a theory.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a theory. So, was it when they were emailing someone who happened to be a GoDaddy email user that the problem occurred, or when a GoDaddy email user was emailing them?
Kind of close. It was more specific to Proofpoint, but I think you're on a theory there.
Okay. And Proofpoint, that was something that's a service of GoDaddy that they offer?
It's an independent service.
Okay.
One of my customers actually uses it, but GoDaddy offers it just like 365 to filter out the mail.
Got it.
But what we started to see was the messages would show a clear indication that there was a GoDaddy DNS, or excuse me, a Proofpoint DNS record in the message and saying it failed. And then it would start to say this user doesn't exist.
Okay.
And so we were scratching our heads. We checked everything on the DNS side. We reached out to GoDaddy. Of course, they were terrible at support.
Oh, so it's someone that's using a Proofpoint on their side. Okay.
Yes.
So Proofpoint never got the update from GoDaddy that, you know, like this is no longer a customer of yours, essentially.
Correct.
Okay.
So we reached out to him a second time. This was like a couple months ago. And I reached out to support and they're like, okay, yes, sir, we'll cancel the service. You have to say, I understand or something like that. I'm like, I understand. Just do it. Just make it happen. You know?
I understand. Do you understand?
Yeah, I know. So we went through the process and we're like, all right, tell everyone we should be okay now. And then boom, we get hit again.
Oh, no.
And I was like, shit. So I'm like, you know, because the customer's getting frustrated now.
Yeah.
And I was in the middle of something that week. So I asked Matt to reach out and Matt reached out to GoDaddy and he's like, no, the service is still active. Like we looked and it's still actually active.
Wow.
And I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing that I want to bring to a head here is the fact that since Proofpoint was still active, there were two main indicators as to why the emails would fail. One is if there was a new user that got added to 365 after we thought we were no longer using Proofpoint. Because Proofpoint wouldn't have that user in there. So user doesn't exist was a valid response.
Okay.
Because it was going through Proofpoint going, I don't see this person.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And secondary to that, we found through a colleague that if the other party has Proofpoint, the message goes Proofpoint to Proofpoint and doesn't use DNS. So basically, even though we thought DNS was fine, it would send Proofpoint to another Proofpoint person, and they would say, we're not there.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. When I logged into Proofpoint, I actually saw messages being filtered months after we thought we left them. I was like, oh, my God. Like bugged out.
Yeah.
So finally, after a third time reaching out to GoDaddy, they're like, yes, we've canceled the service. And it was like a hallelujah moment. The CEO was even, who's a really nice guy, he was like getting frustrated with us, you know?
Yeah, I bet.
It was bad. And GoDaddy is just so like, and I'll tell the story another time, but they also had a backup. Maybe I did tell this at one point, but they had a backup service for mail and they screwed that up because nobody knows what these services are.
Yeah.
You call support and they're like, oh, what's that? Proofpoint must be with your vendor. I'm like, no, you idiot. I'm like, you guys sell this. I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So it was really, really bad because the service just they don't know anything there.
Well, especially since you recommended like, oh, this is going to be better. We're going to switch you away from GoDaddy. And then like, oh, but like 50-50 whether you're going to send and receive emails from now on, you know.
Flip a coin and might go out.
When you would call GoDaddy, you'd get somebody on the phone, and then would you have a case number, and then they escalated, or did you have to like do the dance with anybody who picked up the phone and like almost like start from scratch?
Yeah, when Matt called, it seemed like we were starting from scratch again. I was like, have them look at the notes of the case. It was clear that they did this, and then in between my call and Matt's call, I actually chatted them while I was doing other things because I couldn't call them, and that's when the person was just like, you have to contact, you know, your customer's Proofpoint. I'm like, listen, man, I'm like, for the 20th time, I don't think you're understanding me. Proofpoint is through you. You guys have it. And he just wasn't getting it. I started writing in caps, which I never do. Like I was just all caps, just messaging him going.
Let me guess, you were on a boat in Long Island Sound when you were texting? Because you decided you wanted to take the day off. So anyone who answers the phone at GoDaddy for this particular point, the issue you're having, they're capable of, in theory, handling the call, or do they have to pass it on to some other second tier mucky muck? That's what
usually there's like, well, the first tier is just useless. That's immediate. Like, but I try and tell them, no, you need to contact. You know, they're like, is this email? I'm like, yeah, specific to 365. Proofpoint. They're like, what's Proofpoint? I'm like, just get me to 365, and we try from there. But again, those tiers don't seem to be helpful.
And then can you tell, like, the second person you're talking to on the phone, are they like texting somebody in some other division for answers, or they're actually,
I mean, their answers are delayed, so it could be,
yeah.
you know, like I'm waiting, and then they respond, that kind of a thing.
Yeah,
it was really bad. It was really, really bad. Like, I don't know. There's no recourse because we stopped using their service, so I can't even get a refund. It's just, I don't know. The customer's happier now, and we tried to explain that it was GoDaddy. Hopefully that's good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
It makes us look bad.
Yeah, that's super frustrating. That's been my experience with GoDaddy hosting Microsoft 365 as well, which is that it's the worst possible scenario because you're paying more money and you don't get support from Microsoft. Maybe I don't know if that's changed at all, but last I knew, it's like if GoDaddy is your, like, I forget what they call it. It's not a partner. It's like a it's like a program that I'm pretty sure Microsoft created for GoDaddy, like wanted to sell the service. And like so it's like there's some kind of agreement on the back end between Microsoft and GoDaddy, where GoDaddy is your point of support, and Microsoft can't support you, even though it's actually hosted on their infrastructure. It's their product, obviously, but they will not support you. And GoDaddy can't really support you, to your point. Like they don't really understand the intricacies of supporting Microsoft 365. I mean, that's just crazy that they're selling services that they don't even know. It's not even like on their radar, on their screen of like, this person has this service. I mean, it's just wild.
It is wild. I mean, it took me the better part of 2 months to get someone there that understood their backup piece, because they were backing up they called it their email archive service.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to retain that because that's got historical data. Who's it with, so I can keep it? And 2 months, everyone's like, well, we're trying to find the right person to help you.
Like, and who was that with?
Barracuda is what it turned out to be.
And so how did you get a hold of that?
So I actually finally got who it was at Barracuda, and then I contacted Barracuda, and they gave me the name of a reseller or a client that they work with. And I contacted them and I said, can we just transfer this, or just keep it intact? Just take it out of GoDaddy and have you bill the customer. And they were able to do that, thankfully. So,
it's with another reseller now.
Correct. Not GoDaddy. But again,
this is a great country. It's like, it's just so wonderful. I have a client who's with Intermedia, has their email.
Wow.
And Intermedia is doing the same thing, where they don't want to do their email anymore. They just want to resell OS 365 services.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like,
it's resellers all the way down. It's like there's somebody holding the bag at the bottom. There's like somebody who created something at the bottom, but stacked on top of that is like people that are just reselling and maybe adding a little value, or being a point of contact. I mean, there's real value that's there if you are showing up and you're answering the phone and you understand the thing, and you're acting as a translator and an integrator or whatever. That's the best case scenario. But in a lot of cases, like you guys, you're both pointing out, it's just like, they're happy to sell you, like, just to make the markup on it and then be done with it and hopefully never hear from the person. So
it's like home automation audio installers who sell Control 4 systems. They just want to make the big kill.
Yeah.
And move on. They don't want to support it.
It's absurd. It really truly is. That they don't even know what the products are called is beyond me. How would you not even know that?
Messy. That's messed up. That's really messed up.
But thankfully, we're out of their hold, their grasp, so to speak. So I think we're okay now.
So and this is the proverbial question on our show: how do you bill for something like that, Sam?
See,
that out for
that was tricky because normally, and I know our listeners might beat me up about this, but like normally we bill for our time, but this was something like we said was going to be fine. And it wasn't, and we kind of were holding the bag, even though we're like, it's these guys, it's these jokers over here. So I was very cautious on my billable there. Plus, they're kind of an all-in customer, so there wasn't a lot. Like, normally, this would be a project if we had planned for it, but the project was done. We closed it. We billed for the email migration, so I wasn't about to be like, here's 10 hours of our time because this was so frustrating.
Yeah.
So we billed them a few hours just for, our pain and suffering, to make it like, so that it wouldn't be a tough pill to swallow for them.
Yeah. Right. And the other aspect to this is it's tough because as you're dealing with this, you have to make your client somewhat understand what you're up against and this nuanced infrastructure that is in place, and what you're doing and the pieces that you're moving from this position to this position. They don't want to know that for the most part, but in order for you to at least save face and be the reputable company that you are, you have to explain to them, at least on some level of understanding, what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Right. It's extremely difficult to, you're the face, but there's a back end that's not good, and you have to, I don't know. It's very tough, but we've thankfully had, like I said before, they're a very reasonable client, but even they were reaching their edge, and that's how things are really bad.
Yeah.
I could just think of some client going, well, wait a minute, speak English here. You're trying to tell them, like, oh, no, it's not us. It's them.
Right.
Speak English.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. It's this massive company that I see advertising on the Super Bowl, GoDaddy. Sure, blame them. Yeah. You sure it's not you guys, this, local rinky-dink operation, Yeah. I wonder that sometimes when I try to blame some big multinational corporation for like their boneheaded move. I'm like, no, really, like they're a bunch of idiots. Like, I'm sorry. I know, like, yeah. Or it's even worse when you don't want to throw them under the bus and you're trying to walk that line where you're like, you don't want to say like, I'm really pissed at that vendor, they really screwed you and me here. Or it's like the former IT and you still need them to like, be willing to walk the walk with you. Yeah. There's various reasons why you may not want to like actually tell it like it is to the client. And that's even harder because then you're kind of like, if I don't make this point emphatically enough, they're going to suspect me. And so it's like me versus them. Like, this is a tough one. Well, good job handling it, Sam. And hopefully we all learned something. And you'd think, are you the first one to defederate from GoDaddy? Like,
right? Like, come on, that's happened before.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's extremely frustrating because that part was easy. That was easy. Defederating was not hard, and resetting passwords is what it is. It's all the after stuff. So who knows? I mean, Tim Pearson's in the chat. He's talking that GoDaddy has a few good guides. I found some of their guides to be incorrect at times, to be honest. So I'd love to chat with Tim afterwards to talk more about that, because I followed some of them for like certificate renewals and other things like that, and they tend to be a little bit off, like they don't get updated enough or something. At least that's what
sounds like a Microsoft Office 365 document.
Yeah, right.
Completely different than what you're looking at.
Like, exactly. Right. The old branding.
I'm not seeing this menu.
Old branding, old screenshots, like the link. Yeah. It's just, I'm like, it's a guessing game. I'm like, is it just me? Like, am I the one that's like woefully out of date with my, when did they rename Azure? It's like, that was 6 months ago or something. Now it's Entra. It's like, okay. Like, why there's never an
call it what you want.
Office 365, now it's MS3. They like, you see people using the shorthand of 365. I'm like, they don't call it that anymore. Like, it's not that. It's called Microsoft 365, which can refer to Exchange hosting. It can refer to hosting Windows in the cloud. Like, it could just be like, it's Microsoft 365. We're here for you, except on Leap Day, I guess. I don't know. Like maybe they should rename it next. Like, when's the next leap year? They should call it Microsoft 366 that year, right? And then change it back. Like, update all the knowledge base articles. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Or like April Fools, we renamed. Anyway, but well, all right. We got a little bit left on the public show. Jerry, you have anything pressing, or I have a couple of random things I could bring up?
Well, if you put this out on Slack, everybody says, well, I don't use Apple Mail, but I know you guys use Apple Mail, and I use Apple Mail because I use Daylight, but now Daylight will work with 365. It'll work with Exchange. Or the Outlook. Microsoft Outlook. Yeah, thank you. What is it called this week? But we're in the year 2024. And so nobody makes folders anymore and kind of organizes their mail that way. But you can't even take a simple email in Apple Mail and you can't tag it. So if you're looking for it, you just have to hope in your Spotlight search or the combined search in the Apple Mail window that it brings it up. But, if we could tag this stuff, that would be wonderful. We could assign a color to it or a stupid flag to it.
Yeah.
But
stupid flag.
Sequoia doesn't do that. I know they announced some mail updates in Sequoia. I haven't really scrutinized any of that
Jerry's
yet.
probably on it right now.
So. I know, Jerry. No. Can you just switch over to mail and tell us?
I was interested to see if anybody mentioned that. I didn't see it mentioned specifically, but of course, Small Cubed had that product that doesn't work with our current operating system, Sonoma. So that went away. And it looks like right now their development of some product that does work with Sonoma and newer operating systems is at this point still vaporware. So it's just a simple request. I mean, we can tag notes in the Apple Notes app now. Why can't we tag a piece of email? I don't get it.
There's so many things that I don't get about Apple Mail calendar, like the feature losses and the lack of synchronization to be 100%. I mean, I just had it again with Apple's calendar app because I'm still using it because I don't know why I admit to it, but I do. And like, I actually, when it doesn't sync, that's a problem, obviously. But sometimes when it doesn't sync, I actually found this out the hard way. I created an invitation. I sent it out. I was like, where's the customer? I'm on the call waiting for them. I look, they never replied. I realized even my invitations don't go out when the syncing stops, and they never got it. So just a quick note, not to hijack what you might have been looking to bring up, Jerry, but the one thing that I found that consistently does help is to kill the Exchange Sync D service through Activity Monitor. So quit your Apple apps, kill Exchange Sync D, bring it back, and within a couple minutes, the sync kicks back in. That's the best way I've seen.
Sorry, is this Windows that we're talking about? Like, why are we like? Why is that a solution in 2024? To Jerry's point, it's 2024. Like, we're talking about killing the daemon. Like, it's like, oh, I know how to fix mail. Like, kill the daemon and relaunch it and all this. It's like, this is ridiculous. I had a client today running 14.4.1. She must have deferred the updates the last couple of weeks or whatever. 14.5 is out. She should have updated. She hadn't. And she's an Apple Mail and her email stops working. And so I get connected. She's copying and pasting the password from a Word document, which is full of information that should not be in a Word document. And, including like Gmail accounts that I'm not even aware of, when they think that they have to create a gmail.com address just to access like Google Sheets or something that they're using internally. And it's like company name .spreadsheets@gmail.com. I'm like, oh man, this is uncovering so many more problems that I don't really have the bandwidth to like tell you is a problem right now. But okay, so we're copying and pasting the password. Because it's coming from Word, there's spaces and extra characters around it. I'm like, that's your first problem. So let's copy and paste the right stuff here, which wasn't actually the problem. So we copy and paste the password in. Great. It asks for MFA in the Microsoft Authenticator app. So she goes in, she approves it. Done. It goes to the spinning gear thing, and then it's supposed to go away. And now it's done. The spinning gear is there for a second. It goes away and it comes up with like a stack. It's like an error on top of a panel. You know how like the interface is just not designed to do this. It's displaying an error where it doesn't expect one. And it's like something about an unknown error or something like that. And so we're like, all right, let me restart, try it again. No, let's try it in internet, Yeah, exactly. It's like the Google Snap thing. And like now we're trying, if it doesn't work in mail, you try it in internet accounts and system settings. So we do that. Dance, it's not working. Turn off but it looks like the account is like okay. Anyway, so we turn off the features of the account. We quit and reopen mail, restart, come back, turn it back on. That doesn't work. Delete the account entirely. I'm like, all right, let's delete the account, recreate it. Surely that will work. Nope, same error. I'm like, all right, well, you have an update that you didn't do. Let's do that update first. And then sure enough, that worked. So 14.5, create the account, no problem. So I don't know why 14.4.1 just craps out in mail and internet accounts and everything else, and 14.5 fixes it. I maybe if she had updated, everything would have just kept working. Like, but still, like, it just all feels so unreliable all the time. Like, kill a process, reboot, update, quit mail, reopen it. Maybe then it'll sync. Delete the account. I mean, really, like, I just can't believe we're still in this mess with, and Outlook is similar too. Like I was complaining about I don't know if I ever followed up on this. Somebody in Slack gave me a solution. I have clients who are in Outlook, mostly in Outlook, and one of them was complaining that when he goes to read an email, it's blank. I'm like, oh, no big deal. You can't read your email in your email client, And I'm like, how long has this been going on? He's like, because this was like a while I have you, He's like, oh, like weeks now. I'm like, okay, like what's really? And he's like, well, I just go in and I click reply, then I can read the email in the reply.
You mentioned that on another show, actually. Yeah.
So he's like, I just have to be careful not to click anything because I might accidentally send the reply. Like I just want to read it. I don't want to reply. I'm like, this sounds like a mess. And he said, yeah, some other people are having the same issue. I'm like, and you don't even think to tell me like this is going on? Like this is why we're here. So I troubleshoot. I couldn't figure it out. I put the call out on the show, got a little bit of guidance, and then someone, I can't remember if it was live or in Slack, suggested a font issue. And sure enough, they have Connect fonts. They have a bunch of fonts that are activated that, internally they're working on refining, like whittling down their list of active fonts. But like in the meantime, everybody activates like 300 fonts or something. And so
it was one of our listeners, Joe, that commented in the chat live with you that it might be a font issue.
That solved it. They were right. That absolutely solved it. And there was a couple of steps which were to like, deactivate whatever fonts you don't need. Obviously, also go in Connect fonts. There's a built-in like clean caches or something, I believe. So do that. And then I can't remember if we needed a restart also. But sure enough, that solved it. But just to point out that, things happen in other apps as well. But Mail seems to be like decades now of complaints, essentially,
Yeah. I'm thinking about setting up a launch D item on my Mac, just like every 4 hours, it just kickstarts Exchange Syncs D, just so I don't run into that again.
Wow.
Can you tell us and our listeners, remind us one more time what machine you actually are using? Like what kind of computer? I mean, I know you have a Mac, but do you have an M2?
I'm not so sure anymore after
is it a MacBook Air? What do you got? You got an Intel Mac? What's going on?
I have an M1 Pro. So 16 gig. But why you ask? I mean, what's the impact there on
I don't know. I mean, just like you shouldn't have to do that, right? I mean, that sounds crazy.
One would think. Yeah.
Right. No, I've definitely seen that with clients too. And it's like they're running our recommended solution. It's like they're up to date. They're using Mail for Microsoft 365 hosted email. And they'll call me and be like, I don't know, it's not syncing, whatever. And I'm like, oh, here you go. Let's quit Mail and reopen it. And now it's syncing. It's like, get Mail doesn't work. Clicking that, like telling it to sync all accounts doesn't work. You have to quit and reopen Mail. So it's probably doing what you're describing, Sam. It's probably killing that daemon and then relaunching it when it reopens. But why is that necessary? I don't know. And Jerry doesn't seem to have these problems. Maybe it's like just install everything you encounter online and have it all running in your menu bar, and that
always be in beta.
It solves everything. Yeah, there you go. Beta. Maybe that's it. Betas work.
In all fairness, I'm only running, and as of yesterday, iOS 18. I got some thumbs up, to do that from the folks on Slack, with their daily driver. And they're like, we did it. It's fine. So I did it on my watch or my phone and everything's good. As a matter of fact, when I updated to this first beta version, developer beta, I was really hard pressed to find stuff that's new. Because it reboots and it kind of looks the same, and you got to kind of fiddle with it, and you can change your, desktop configuration, or your screen, your home screens. Two things before we go. I was doing a little bit of home organization. We've done at our home a number of upgrades that required vendors to come in and do work, whether it's a water purification system or adding air conditioning to the house. And if we ever decide to move on, I wanted to have all these documents sort of like what we paid for it, where's the document, where's the receipt. And so I did a little numbers chart, but some of the scans that I did were PDFs, and I had used products like PDF Pro in the past to do OCR, and the one that comes with the ScanSnap, which is I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, you can actually add OCR to PDFs as a services, a quick, what do they call those? In services. It's not even in services. It's in Finder. If you select,
Like a
quick
I think
action.
they call it a stir. Oh, a quick action. Yeah, these
Quick action. Yeah. So I have a link to it. We'll put it in the show. There's a woman who's a podcaster. Her name is Allison Sheridan, and she's had different solutions along the way. At one point, she was invoking Hazel to do this, but you could basically sort of invoke this Apple script that puts it right into the quick action. So you select the PDF, you right click on it, runs the Apple script in the background, and all of a sudden you've got a duplicated version that is hyphenated and it says -OCR. So it's a real handy little utility to have in your Mac.
That is
and
nice.
The final thing that I'm going to share with you is our daughter recently dropped her phone, and we have Apple Care Plus on it. And you don't have to go to the store and harangue around with them. You can just call up Apple Care on the phone. Sam, you might know this because you've got, family, young family that might, have damage to their phones. And just tell them that, the screen's cracked and there's no limit. It used to be you were allowed, I think it was
2 per year.
2 drops every year or every 2 years or so, or 1 drop a year. But now there's no limit. You just keep on dropping your phone and you pay them the $100 or just a little bit less, and they swap it out and they send it to your house and you send the other one back and it's easy peasy.
Nice.
Yeah. I might do that at some point. Just, for the satisfaction of like breaking my phone and then getting a brand new replacement, because it's got some scuffs and things around the edges and whatnot. It's like, I'd like it to just be a fresh phone. And
sure.
I'll pay $100 for a fresh phone.
Why not?
I don't know. It's like, you could kind of abuse that privilege, but that's what it's there for, I guess, if you just want a fresh one.
Yeah.
Jerry, going back to that OCR tip. So I noticed that in Sonoma and image capture, you can check the box to scan to a PDF and include OCR. Like the system will do it one fell swoop. So upon, scanning, and also, by the way, that's the new method of scanning using image capture, which you could do before, I think, but it used to be able just to do it right built into the printer queue. So, I mean, this is another one of these things that reminds me of Microsoft a little bit, where something that used to work perfectly fine, Apple just arbitrarily changes. So now there's no more individual printer queue, app for each printer that you could have in your dock and monitor each queue. There's probably a third-party way to do it now, I guess. But, instead they have the print center, which fine, it's consistent with iOS. It's not necessarily worse. It's just that it's a change. And now, it's requiring clients to call me and say, oh, what do I do? I used to do this and now it's not there anymore and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's a really good point, actually. Like you have the printer queue in your dock. So Apple helpfully changes that to a question mark after you upgrade to Sonoma, and then doesn't replace it with the print center. Don't you think that they could just like say, all right, if you have 3 question marks in your dock, each of which was a printer before the upgrade, when we decided to rip out these apps that you were perfectly happy with in your dock and replace them with question marks, take the first one of those and put the print center there and remove the other 2 question marks from the dock. Apple can do that. It's not magic. Like I could probably do that with a Apple script or something,
By the way, that's the 3rd time you hit your microphone. 4th.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think today Joe is extra spicy. I feel like he really is. I like it. I'm
constrained to my chair because I'm using my built-in camera and not my standing desk camera and all of that. So now I'm just because I'm constrained to my chair, my hands are flailing. So yeah, that's what's happening.
So to respond to your image capture, that's for new documents. But if you had existing scans, it's just so great to go into Finder and right-click on it and do a quick action, and it just does it behind the scenes. So
nice. That's great.
Yeah. So we'll include that, like I say, in the show notes.
Cool.
Nice. Cool. Yep. Thumbs up from me too. Now I can do reactions. Oh, what's going on? I'm not doing it.
I love it.
What happened to me?
You're dark and stormy, Jerry.
Oh yeah. Oh man, every call these days has to remark on like reactions and effects and video. I mean, ever since the days of the lockdowns, that's how it's been.
Yeah, you got to watch the video, folks. You can't just listen because you're just missing all the fun here.
A lot of fun stuff going on there on the video. All right. Well, for the live listeners, we will be back shortly on the second link to record a patron-only episode. And for everyone else listening at home, if you are a patron, look for that episode soon. If you're not a patron, make sure you're getting all of the great content at commandcontrolpower.com. click on support to join us on Patreon. We would love to be able to give you a peek behind the scenes. Sam's going to tell us what his big update is. And I'm going to share some other, really interesting things, conversations about battery backups for your home or business that are not like the old school UPSs, but lithium battery based. I'm going to talk about my new internet connection, which now goes through, I don't know, it goes through an NTD, and it used to not go through an NTD. So I can tell you guys about that exciting development and
Wow.
some other,
Where do I sign up?
Yeah, please, Jerry.
I want to learn about NTD.
You're going to want to know this, believe me. So join us there. And thanks everybody else for listening to Command Control Power.